charge in the war.
Imagine a world where a deadly virus returns, stronger than ever. 28 years later takes place nearly 3 decades after the outbreak, showing a world that never healed. Fans of 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later finally get answers, but they are terrifying. Directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland, the film releases in June 2025. The rage virus has mutated, making the infected even more dangerous. Survivors who once felt safe now face a harsh truth. It never disappeared. With old and new characters, 28 years later follows a generation raised in fear. The virus now hides in people before turning them rabid. As humanity struggles, the real horror may not be the infected, but those still alive. Let's dive deeper into this nightmare. If you don't want key plot details revealed, consider this the warning. Things are about to get intense. The Rage 2025 virus is not the same as the one that threatened humans in 28 Days Later. In the past, as soon as someone got infected, they would turn violent instantly, attacking others and spreading the disease within minutes. Even one infected person was enough to put an entire group in danger before any cure was found. However, over time, the virus has changed and become stronger. Now, the virus does not always act right away. Some infected people still turn aggressive immediately, but others remain normal for hours or even days before showing symptoms. This makes it hard to know who is infected until it is too late. In safe communities, people now fear that someone among them could be unknowingly carrying the virus. Because of this, trust has become rare and fear is everywhere. Even in places still controlled by the government, people live with uncertainty. Scientists have also discovered that the virus is now tougher than before. In the past, infected people often died because they could not get enough food. But the new version allows some infected people to survive for years. This means waiting for the virus to disappear is no longer an option. It is clear that the disease will not go away on its own. After the pandemic, many decades have passed, leading to a post-apocalyptic world. Frederick, a WHO epidemiologist skilled in biotech, and Jamie and Alice, a pair of parents, must navigate this new reality. The film begins with Jamie, a boy born during the chaos. He has spent his entire life in a safe zone with only a few settlements. Unlike the survivors from the earlier outbreaks, Jamie has never known a world without the virus. He has been trained to kill, hide, and stay alert at all times. However, his parents have told him stories about life before the outbreak, when holidays were filled with people, not the infected. Jamie learns that his family is part of a small, isolated community on the mainland. This settlement is only accessible through a heavily guarded bridge that leads to an island where scientific studies are being conducted. The people in this community have created their laws and traditions, choosing to separate themselves from the outside world. But their peace is shattered when a single infected individual breaches the walls, triggering a disaster that threatens everything they have built. On the other side of the story is Lena, a desperate scientist trying to understand the mutated virus. The military and many survivor groups believe that violence is the only way to stop the infection. But Lena is searching for a cure. Her research leads to shocking discoveries, not just about the virus, but also about the people who may have helped create it. Probably one of the most thrilling parts of 28 Years Later is Cillian Murphy's comeback as Jim. He was last seen in 28 Days Later when he barely survived and was rumored to have been rescued. Now something is wrong. His unexplained reappearance has opened a Pandora's box of questions. Has he managed to survive? Where does he pop up again? And why now? Jim is a completely new man. The personal traumas of the breakdown of society have made him tough in the years he was not with her, having experienced a level of suffering beyond what one can normally imagine. His arrival at Jamie's community arouses both curiosity and fear. For some, he is a kind of phoenix, the last survivor from the initial days of the outbreak. Others are not so sure, making his true intentions the subject of their skepticism. The ferocious survivor reveals a new horrifying threat much worse than the virus itself. Nonetheless, his real purposes are still unknown, and as memories resurface, it becomes clear that Jim is looking for his vengeance. On the other hand, former military members who once tried to contain the virus now act as other returning characters. One part, still clinging to hope, refuses to believe that civilization cannot be rebuilt. They stand opposite those who have accepted that the world has changed irrevocably. The differences among the factions run deep. The survivors must decide whether to fight for a lost way of life or embrace a new, brutal reality. As tensions rise, old allies and enemies cross paths, and everyone must rethink the true meaning of survival. Jim's sudden return uncovers buried secrets, and the fight for humanity's future begins again. Jamie, Lena, and Jim have no choice but to escape as the virus spreads uncontrollably beyond control. Their only hope is the rumored sanctuary, the only place where an organized human settlement may still exist. But the trip is dangerous. On the way, they come into contact with the different factions of survivors. While some look for ways to rebuild, others long for chaos. In this world, the infected are not the only threat. Survival has turned people into moral monsters. Some dominant groups govern through fear and violence to manipulate the weaker survivors. Others resort to the most brutal methods, with some even conducting experiments on the infected in the hope of discovering a cure. Jamie, Lena, and Jim have difficulty coping with the grim truth that mankind might be beyond repair. Is survival valuable if, in the process, they could turn into monsters? The infected are more horrifying than ever. Some of them are quicker, others display bizarre intelligence, and some of them just won't die. The virus has mutated so that every encounter now becomes a fight for survival again. What is more horrifying is that it goes from being dormant in some cases to silently spreading and then erupting into a rage. Intense action, such as dead-end flights, brutal fights, and narrow escapes with no reliable exit route, occurs throughout the whole storyline. Due to the infected and other human factions, Jamie, Lena, and Jim have to be on the run constantly. Each step forward comes with a hefty price, and there is very little trust. They are fast learners. They realize that in their world, taking time to make decisions leads to death. As they move forward, their hope for safety fades. The sanctuary they seek may even be a mere illusion. Besides, if this sanctuary exists, they have to ask themselves whether the world they will encounter there is truly worth living in. Through her research, Dr. Lena learns chilling secrets about the rage virus. By sifting through dusty government files and uncovering facts from abandoned labs, she finds out the virus was not naturally occurring. It was constructed as a weapon of war to be controlled. Something went wrong, and from there, the experiment ran out of control, affecting the world globally. Lena discovers even darker truths as she goes on. There are still people out there who are trying to manage the virus. Certain factions don't see the infected as a plague, but as the ultimate power tool. In their opinion, the virus is not a mistake, but a promise for the future. They are sure that those who oppose it are the real threat. These groups have been illegally carrying out research in the hope of manipulating the virus for their purposes. Lena is on the horns of a dilemma. She has been looking for a way to cure the virus for a very long time, yet she struggles with a difficult question. If the virus can be controlled, is it worth saving? If the cure falls into the wrong hands, it could be used to strengthen the virus rather than stop it. Eliminating all the research would be the only way to make sure the virus never spreads further. On the contrary, if she destroys it, any chance of a cure comes to an end. Meanwhile, Jamie and Jim are fighting the battle of their lives. The infected are now more dangerous than ever, and human factions are in chaos. One decision will tip the balance of the world. Even if they defeat the virus, they are unsure of what will remain of the world itself. Time is now crumbling like molten steel, running wildly along the infinite corridors of the dead. The infected have become stronger, and the only ones tackling their evolution are those who not only have to kill them, but also try to control them. The time bomb is ticking away. Lena, Jamie, and Jim must decide, should they strive for a cure, or should they destroy everything before it becomes irreversible? The climax of 28 years later delivers a shocking and emotional ending that will leave audiences questioning everything. With humanity on the brink of extinction, the final battle is not just against the infected, but against those who wish to control the virus for their gain. The survivors face an impossible choice: fight to restore a world that may never recover, or embrace the chaos and start anew. The film ends on an ambiguous note, much like its predecessors. While there is hope, it is overshadowed by the knowledge that the rage virus has changed the world forever. Humanity may survive, but it will never be the same. As 28 years later hits theaters in June 2025, audiences can expect a thrilling, emotional, and terrifying continuation of one of the most iconic horror franchises of all time. Will humanity find a way to overcome the rage virus, or is this truly the end? One thing is certain: the nightmare is far from over.